Okay, we're talking about the bad guys from Stargate again, the Goa'uld, that horrible word that you hate with an apostrophe in it. Do you need a
I
refresher on them? Do I need to get some pictures again?
no, I was listening to a soundboard to see if it fit. It did not, so I shall not be playing it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, because the soundboard would drive me nuts, and I know that you love to abuse it. Ever since the bagpipe video, I've been having PTSD about giving you control of that. Yeah, so we're specifically talking about the system lords and their society, going a little bit more in depth on how they actually work, so like how they organize themselves, to their customs and habits, and the stuff that they call an excuse for culture, and the individual system lords and stuff that have been ruling the toll booth kingdom they call an empire. Before we fully get into all of that, though, introductions. Generic greetings and welcome to Science Insanity, a channel dedicated to bringing my love of sci-fi to you, the viewer, and along for the ride, filling in as comedic relief, content fodder, and sci-fi illiterate, is my friend Steve. Introduce yourself, Steve.
Hello, I am Steve.
Perfect. Even after I tried to force you to engage more with a more active intro, like introduce yourself rather than just say hi, you still find a way to do absolutely bare minimum. Thank you, it's perfect.
You're welcome.
So what do you actually remember about the worms?
That they be worming.
Oh. You're barely getting the basics of Battletech, and I'm expecting way too much from you.
Toll booth empire. Yes.
Okay, so they're the parasites. They're the horrible worms that slither into your stomach and then attach themselves to your spinal column to take control of your body and stuff. They are horrendous, and they give you superpowers so long as they are attached to you, like very high strength, really good immune system, can live for thousands of years, whatever. But the downside is that they take over your body, and you are no longer you. You are a meat puppet mech that they are controlling.
I still can't get over meat puppet mech because I know you used that last time.
It's accurate. That's literally what it is. They're piloting you like a puppet. They take over your brainstem, and all the electrical signals controlling your body are them. I don't remember whether or not they actually, like, take control of your brain, or whether you're locked in your own body like the universe's most horrific prison, but you could be a horrible prisoner in your own body, but I can't remember, so we'll just assume it's the worst thing ever.
One of those might be slightly worse than the other. I'm not entirely sure, though. I think they're about even.
Just about. So we'll go from the bottom of their society and then move to the top. It's also important to mention that there's, like, no solid, defined, definitely written in law caste system or levels of government or anything. Everything is based on the handshake rule. So at the very bottom of the totem pole are the slaves. Do I really need to explain what this is?
I certainly hope not.
Well, I don't need to, but I'm going to anyways, because we gotta pad the video runtime. That sweet, sweet ad revenue, baby. The 40 cents we'll make off of the extra 3 minutes.
Gotta squeeze that extra ad in there, man. It's gonna make all the difference.
It'll be quick, though. As one would expect, I don't really need to explain anything here. Like, that dude dragging a 3-ton block of stone to build a disgustingly 3-sided pyramid, or the dude being beaten half to death for mispronouncing the impossible name of their overlord. Like, yeah, it's those guys. They're the slaves. In Gould's society, they don't really do anything of importance or significance. Like, they're responsible for harvesting or mining resources and stuff, as well as doing most of the basic labor to refine them, but the Gould don't let them even remotely close to anything of importance within the Empire. Building their ships, running their technology, accomplishing anything beyond mindless worship and hopeless labor. Like, above them come the Jaffa. Do you remember these guys?
No.
No? Would you like a picture of them?
Yes, please.
But yeah, so the Jaffa are those guys you see there, armored up in the Egyptian-style suits of, I don't know, aluminum, tinfoil, paper mache. They're completely useless, and they die to everything anyways, so I'm not going to call it armor. But that's what they are. They are the foot soldiers of the Gould. They are the warrior caste. They are technically just one step above slaves, but they're treated horrifically poorly, and they generally live to die. Like, that's a whole thing in their culture. The Gould instill within them the belief that dying for their gods will grant them, I don't know, eternal life, something amazing, or whatever.
So what I'm seeing here is that everyone is basically a slave.
Yeah, until we get to, like, the top 3 rungs of society, yes, That is a very easy way to sum up Gould society. Everybody's a slave, except for the dude at the very top of the pyramid. Get it? Because it's like a pyramid scheme. Everyone's below, and they fly pyramids.
It was good until you started explaining it. Then you just ruined it. But
well, what can I say? I exist to ruin everything.
We have special talents for this.
So like I was saying, this is the warrior caste, but this is also the first caste of the Gould Empire, where we see the disgusting worms come into play, because they all have symbiotes, or at least most of them do. They are the first level of Gould society where the symbiote is involved, like I said, although in this case, the Jaffa more have the symbiote forced on them rather than being chosen as a host. They technically worship the Gould as gods, so it isn't really forced, but they don't have a choice, and things can go very wrong while this process is happening. Early on, with the technology and the process of actually implanting the symbiote in the Jaffa, many of them died. Like, half of them just straight up kicked it off the mortal coil because they were incompatible with the symbiotes. And over the 20,000 years, 20,000... I'm going to save that rant for later. 20,000 years that the Gould have been around, they've gotten the process down a little bit better to maybe only like 1 fatality out of every 10 or so, rather than it being about half the crop of new soldiers. Ritual cannibalism is also a thing, which we will get to.
Bro just throws that in there at the very end. No, we'll get to it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry. So we'll get to that. That's a later part. We're covering the caste system right now and how their society stacks up, but the ritual cannibalism is part of their culture, which we will get to later. But the reason that they force the symbiotes on the Jaffa is because they give them a hell of a lot more power. Not only does the symbiote make them way stronger and dramatically enhance their bodies overall, it also gives them basically superhuman healing abilities. You get shot, and instead of needing medical attention, you just need to lie down for a couple days kind of thing.
Let me just go rest for a minute.
Unlike the system lords higher up, though, and all of those more important versions of the Gould, the bonding for the Jaffa is so they can disconnect, but both will probably die immediately after. So if the Jaffa dies, the symbiote goes with them. And this is population control. Would you like to take a guess why?
Because we need to control the population.
No,
So
it's actually it's self-preservation, because the Gould are conniving, backstabbing, traitorous, petty little shits, and having a whole bunch of them running around is not a good idea.
So what you're saying is they're communist worms.
No, because they don't share anything.
They're controlling the means of the reproduction.
That joke is so bad and so forced, it's almost
You're
as
welcome.
bad as my pyramid joke.
Almost, but
And
I
you-
didn't try to
and-
explain it.
And you say that I
And so-
ruin everything? You ruined it without needing to explain it. That's
Hey,
almost more impressive.
I said that we have a special talent for it.
Okay.
Not single out you. I
Okay.
said we.
The question of Jaffa commanders and generals and stuff is a little iffy, since although they are the warrior caste from top to bottom, including pilots, transportation, logistics, all of that, it's changed quite a few times throughout the series through soft retcons to the lore, where they set things up and that's how people kind of expected it to go, but then later on, in order to provide more variety and not have every system lord just be a copy pasta cutout of one another, they kind of changed it. So they went, oh yeah, that's how it was done with those guys early on, or like that's how they did it, but you know, other system lords will do it like this, or the predominant culture is more like that. The actual organization of the Jaffa varies from system lord to system lord, and it will also change within different regions of their control. There are some general overlying consistencies, though. For example, the first, second, and third prime are essentially the right-hand men of the system lord. They're like the first guy that he goes to when he needs something done. If he's going to give control of a battle fleet, the first prime is the guy that does it. When the first prime delegates, it's to the second and third, and so forth like that. Are there any actual, like, influential or powerful Jaffa that have control of armies and stuff? No, not really. even when they are given command of a full ship or an invasion force, they're generally very tightly on the leash of somebody, because Jaffa rebellions are fairly common in the small scale across the history of the Empire, and so the Goa'uld really do not trust the Jaffa with anything important if they can get away with not doing that. So there's a lot of variation in the internal structure here and there. And speaking of non-major system lord Gould, you'll be surprised to learn they actually do have a civilian caste. Would you like to take a guess what they do?
Essentially be slaves.
Okay, well, yes, but actually no, and technically sorta kinda maybe. There are many Goa'uld that have no desire to play power politics, or who are simply so weird and kind of out there that they decide to pursue other things as their obsession and focus. Generally, the reason that the Goa'uld pursue empire building and becoming dictators is because they're egotistical shitlords that just want their name plastered on everything, and their ego is the size of a solar system. Some of those system lords, though, or some of the Goa'uld that don't become system lords, I should say, decide that the best way to stroke their ego is to develop something that will endure beyond anything that they could live to. For example, if they were to develop a new spaceship that their overlord they're in service to uses to conquer the galaxy, well, their name can quite literally be plastered on every ship everyone is going to carry around. So a lot of Goa'uld civilians will become scientists or engineers or explorers. As for any menial work or anything that's done by servants, you might expect to be things like clerical work or doing your taxes or bookkeeping. That's all done by servants and slaves. No Goa'uld would ever submit themselves to doing menial tasks or labor of any kind. So they just do the more glorious stuff like inventing weapons and technology and conquering planets. And since it took them nearly 15,000 years of stagnancy, I'm gonna do the rant now. I will not let this die. I don't.
Oh God.
I don't give a shit how well you explain something in your lore. If the timescale is so beyond stupid, I refuse to believe it. There are very legitimate explanations for why the Goa'uld can't have nice things, and it's because they suck ass at everything and they're traitorous, backstabbing monkeys that don't want to share. Okay? Reasonable, understandable. It's a million dictators playing petty king to their toll booth empire. It's a great idea for the evil bad guys in your sci-fi setting. Okay, cool, fine. But 15,000 years and they haven't invented anything better than the crappy pyramid ships they start the series with? Really? That's the best they've got? And you claim to tell me that a big part of the Goa'uld civilian caste is scientists and engineers? What are they doing? What are they doing for 15,000 years? The occasional once-off super ship we see isn't even intentional. I swear to God, these guys tripped over their own dick and accidentally discovered a new super weapon, if it took them 15,000 years to do it. I'm pretty sure if you gave me 15,000 years, I could come up with a new super weapon that would completely invalidate anything anybody has around today. It's 15,000 years, Steve! Mankind went from banging rocks together to building spaceships that could beat the Goa'uld in that time period. What the actual fuck?
Are we saying 15,000 years is a long time? I'm confused by the rant here.
It's basically longer than all of human civilization.
I'm aware of this.
Yeah. I'm done with my rant. I think I've used up all of my anger. All of my feelings have been used up.
I don't believe you have. I think you got a little bit more left in you that's going to come out at the end of the episode, but we'll wait till then.
Yeah, probably. It'll be like a second wind I didn't know. Next up are the System Lords proper. This is what you'd call any Goa'uld who control enough planets and forces to maintain their territory. They range from a few systems to hundreds and generally rule with an iron fist. System Lord is also another one of those not exactly okay sort of kind of maybe titles. Like, how can I explain this? So you know how in real life, in order to be called a doctor, like legally, you need to actually possess a qualification that's given to you?
Yeah, doctorate degree, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and there are like rules, peer-reviewed tests, a lot of studying and stuff, like to make sure that you're actually qualified. Well, System Lord is like someone calling themselves an economist or a historian. There's no actual hard credentials you need, and anybody can do it, and only like a bigger, more valid person with like more exposure can slap you and say, nah, you're full of shit, right? That's generally how it works. And that's essentially what it is for the System Lords as well. It's a popularity contest, but instead of popularity, it's barbaric dictatorship over multiple worlds. For example, like on the lowest end, we've got Sobek, the wonderful crocodile head guy from Egypt, I think. It is Sobek, right? Do you know your ancient Egyptian gods?
Hell no.
Okay, well, we'll go with Sobek. I think Sobek was the guy that wore the corn hat as well. Yeah, he was. Sobek, the crocodile head guy that wears the corn hat. And the only reason I know that is because I watch H-Bomber guy videos occasionally. So he was so weak that he only controlled a few worlds, and when he went to launch an attack looking to opportunistically claim more, immediately got his ass clapped and executed for his troubles. So the bar for calling yourself a System Lord isn't on the floor, it's in hell.
The answer is what bar?
Exactly. But realistically, in the setting and the series, it's referring to the dozen or so truly relevant System Lords that make up the Empire, the ones who broker deals, power plays, and wars over hundreds, if not thousands of worlds, and control billions of underlings. At the top, in the current era, is the Supreme System Lord. Insert that absolutely shit I am supreme meme here with all of the merch and stuff. Same thing as being a System Lord, there's no official rank, like you don't get to vote on it or anything. A really, really, really long time ago, when the Empire was actually ruled by an emperor, he would assign you to be a System Lord and then give you systems to control, but there is no emperor anymore, so that doesn't count, and now it's just kind of up in the air. The Supreme System Lord is the de facto emperor of the Empire, which is a sentence, God, thankfully I said it correctly the first time. This is simply the System Lord with the biggest army and the largest share of the violence pie. The only Supreme System Lord that's ever really existed, or that we know of, was Ra, the Egyptian sun god, and when we talk about the actual Emperor, the highest possible rank, like I said, the title has been defunct for tens of thousands of years and was only around during the earlier days of the Gould Empire. This was back when the Emperor essentially monopolized the fleets and armies of the Empire, delegating little power and influence to only the most loyal of sublords that became his council of System Lords. There are tons of other smaller ranks, positions, statuses, and stuff within Gould society, but they're, for the most part, one-off that we see specific examples of, or unique to individual System Lords that were mostly just created or altered to make specific episodes more entertaining. Like, they don't want the Gould to be monotonous, so, you know, this episode or this story arc, they invent a new type of bad guy, or a new system, or a new class, or something like that to make things more interesting. What do you want to talk about next? Do you want to go over some of their culture, if you can call it that?
Let's just get to the ritualistic cannibalism. Let's just go to that.
All right, that's part of their culture. So where should we start? Let's talk about why they're so backstabby, why they're so violent and treacherous. Would you like to take a wild guess?
Because that's just part of their culture, man.
And like a lot of fish or amphibians or whatever that lay these big clusters of eggs, a lot of them evolve the unfortunate tendency to eat each other. At pretty much every stage of their existence, they would eat each other and kill off the weakest link to get more resources for themselves. So as a survival mechanism, it's rooted extremely deep in their culture to try and betray one another, stab them in the back, and kill each other, because in their genetics, it's basically hard-coded that for me to have more, you need to die so I can take your shit. It's not really true or realistic, because as society advances, they can just make a bigger pie. They don't need to share finite resources, but they never grew out of that. So the vast majority of the backstabbing is, okay, I say vast majority, a very hefty part of it is because they evolved that kind of competitive strategy where they'll kill each other. Another big part of it is just because they're egomaniacal assholes. Probably because in some way they have space small man syndrome where they know that they're worms and they're disgusting, horrific creatures. And so when they implant into other creatures, they're like, I'm better than you. I'm totally not awful. I'm not a worm. I'm not terrible. I'm a god. Yeah, I'm totally awesome. Believe that I'm awesome. And that's like the other half of their culture. I'm convinced that's what it is. This also ties in, I'll get to it in a little bit, but it ties in to the fact that the Gould unironically think that their hosts are sexually attractive. The most fucked thing ever. But again, just like the ritual cannibalism, we will get to that. It's coming down the pipeline. Just give it a few more minutes.
I'm really concerned about all this stuff that you're telling me that we're gonna get to.
Yeah, it gets worse. It just gets worse. The more you read into them and the more, like, like, the more you read into it, the more into it they become for their hosts, and it's just,
Hey, yo!
It's so weird, Steve. It's so weird. Okay, maybe we just skip the backstabbing. Look, everybody knows they're backstabby, right? I've explained it. You know that they're treacherous little shits, okay? There's reasons for it. I've explained a couple, and you all, in your heart of hearts, know the real reason they're backstabby is because they're all evil degenerates, and the story needed a bad guy, so whatever, moving on. The whole thing about worms and their appearance. So, they have a star system-sized ego, but they are space furries, is the best way I can describe it. They're
This is getting worse and worse.
Yeah, so you know how there's like humans that have an unhealthy attraction to things that are not humans or that don't look like humans?
I don't recognize them as humans, so...
Yeah, fair, understandable. That's pretty much what the entirety of the Gould are, because there are multiple... There are multiple examples where the Gould have preferences, like one Gould queen that only wanted to be in certain types of blondes with the correct body and that were hot enough for her. There's an example of a Gould that's going around from host to host trying to find a partner that is attractive enough for the other symbiote that they are in love with. And it's just like, what the hell are you doing?
I think I'm just at the point where I want this to be over. I don't...
Hi, hello, Editing Sai here, coming at you with a few more mental flashbangs. Firstly, what I said is not the whole story. It's not, like, the full explanation for it. There's several other parts that are just fucking awful with this whole thing about why the Goulds and humans and preference, just, it's awful. It's so bad. The preference is very real. We see on multiple occasions Gould that have no host, that are looking between humans, do have a preference on how they look and will basically change them out like clothes. There are humans that are unironically attracted to inanimate objects and animals and all kinds of fucked up shit. I don't think it's very far off that the Gould have a weird shit like that as well. The Tok'ra merge more successfully. The Gould basically just demolish the mind and personality of their host while taking over the physical body. The physical body comes with all of the hormones, feelings, preferences, and whatever that the original person had, which includes the physical sensations of pleasure, not just pain and hunger, taste, whatever, okay? So there's also a theory, I don't know if it's canon or not, but it's very common in the fandom, which is that part of their evolution was ingraining as many of the original behaviors as the host as possible, because it would better help them blend into society. Generally, sex, control of it, who gets to do it, and who gets to reproduce is an extremely core part of a lot of social networks in animals, less evolved and less developed societies and stuff. And so the idea is that they adopt all of that to blend in better and not potentially get themselves ostracized and then get their host killed and then themselves killed or something like that. So yeah, and in the end, you boil everything down, and it's a mix of them being weird space furries that are just way too into the pink upright meat bags to be healthy. They inherit the physical sensations of pleasure and pain and all of that, so they realized they had a sausage and started cranking the meat, and they were like, this is great, and then they just went with it. And part of it is that they are biologically trained to try to integrate themselves as best as they can into societies that often involve lots of reproductive rituals. So hey, yeah, presto, there you go. The Gould are fucking awful, and they have this just horrifically terrible relationship with their hosts, and this place just sucks. Whoever wrote these things are awful. I hate you. Back to the video. I can't deal with this shit. Let's do something that's slightly more palatable. the ritual cannibalism. So this is something that's not, again, not super clear cut. We know that they do it, and we know that it's a ceremony, and we know that they'll do it to defeated enemies, but what specific reason they do it for, or what specific cultural significance it has, isn't fully known, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that they just do it because they're assholes and they're asserting their dominance over the enemy. And what they do is they will take younger symbiotes, or they'll take the symbiotes of people that have failed them, or they'll take the symbiotes of conquered enemies, and they will eat them. In many cases, they don't kill them doing this either. They will mortally wound them, but they're not dead. They're just injured enough that they're going to die a slow, miserable death. And in some cases, they implant them back into their host so that it extends how long it takes them to die for days or weeks or months. Sometimes they do just eat it because, hey bro, free protein, I guess, but...
I guess.
Yeah, it's ritual cannibalistic murder is basically what they do. And it is... Everything you take here contributes to the Goa'uld having one of the most treacherous, backstabbing, distrustful societies that have ever existed. And they do invent new stuff, but because of their culture of being constantly stabbed in the back, they never want to share. In many cases, they're so anal about keeping all of their stuff under their own control. If one of the scientist caste invents a new ship or creates something really powerful, the system lord that they're working for might just outright kill them to make absolutely sure they could never make another one after, taking all the data and stuff, and then intentionally never make another version of that starship and only keep the single one that was built as their personal flagship. They're parasites in every sense of the word. They don't have art, they don't have music, they don't have literature. They steal and consume from all the peoples that they conquer. Even the trappings of them having all of this stuff, they didn't build any of it. When they came to Earth, they co-opted most of the religions they found. They didn't just create new ones, they just integrated themselves into the ones that were already there. And they stole the artwork, the culture, the dress, the music, all of that. Like, there's a guy called Yu, like one of the system lords, Chinese. He's aggressively uber Chinese, and he just like stole all the shit from them when he came here. So they're awful. Their culture is just awful. They are irredeemable, and wiping their entire species out of existence can be considered nothing but a moral choice to make the universe a better place by taking out the trash.
Okay, that anger was gonna come back at the end of it. There was a little bit there, and I know you're self for it, so...
Yeah, I don't like them. I really don't like them. They've got a great aesthetic, but they are just... Every aspect from in and out of... They're just terrible. I hate them. Like, they're amazing villains, and considering that I hate them so much, they do the job of a villain absolutely perfectly, but God, I hate them. I hate them so much. And we're almost done. I just wanted to go over a couple of them because they're funny. So we talked a little bit about Raw. He was in there. I want to talk about Ball. I want to talk about Yu Huang Shang Ti, or just known as Yu.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's a name. It is a name and a half, man.
Seems more like 3 names, actually, if I'm being honest, but...
It is. It's like multiple names slapped together. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Apophis, just because, like, those are my personal favorite 3 system lords. There's a lot. There's like 20 of them, so, it's a la carte. Take your pick. But we'll start with Anubis, because in my opinion, he's got the funniest ending. He's locked in eternal stalemate of nuh-uh. He's an ancient Goa'uld. He was a very powerful system lord, like I talked about, and he was banished, right? His actions were apparently so unspeakable, right? The things he did were so terrible that they literally wiped his name from the history books. They obliterated his empire. They banished him from the entirety of the Milky Way. They were basically like, everything about you will be unmade, and we will only carry your name so that we can remember how much we hate you. Turns out, on his long exile, he figured out a way to ascend. You don't know what that is, but it's basically becoming like an energy spirit in a higher plane of existence. It's becoming like a 4th dimensional being. Considering that this is as close to actual divinity as your average person in the Stargate universe can get, functionally a god. So he came back He created that super weapon that we talked about and then got in a civil war with and wiped out like half the remaining system lords. He was stopped by another ascended being called Oma de Sala. Now, you want to know something funny about the ascended beings, Steve?
What?
None of them are really more powerful than any others. They can't really overpower one another, and if you put two of them head to head in a battle of wills, it's basically just stalemate forever. Oma de Sala came down and attacked him, and they got into a duel, right? We're shooting our spirit energy at each other, and they just stayed there. That was it.
What?
He got stuck. That's it. One ascended cannot overpower another. While Oma de Sala was attacking him, Anubis couldn't do anything. In order to fight back, they were perfectly evenly matched. 10 minus 10 cancels out to 0. There you go. That's it. He's just stuck there. They pressed pause. Like, we've revoked your existing privileges. That's just it.
That is some junk.
Yeah, it's really funny. If I remember correctly, on like the official list of like what happened to them, they've got like unknown, dead, alive, whatever. He's like the only one that's got like inactive. He's literally just on pause mode. They just paused him, and he's gonna be stuck like that until the heat death of the universe. So let's talk about you next, because I just find him funny because he's so old. He's the ultimate boomer. So Yu Hang Shang-Ti was the oldest system lord. Like, this man is fucking ancient. He was the Chinese Jade Emperor, but he was also around for like, if I remember, like over 10,000 years. In fact, he is so unbelievably old that he was around when the Protected Planets Treaty was drafted up, and he is so unbelievably old that he actually has super space dementia. He's actually going insane. That's how old he is. Poor old Yu is going a little bit more insane every day. He is rotting away in his own body. That's how old he is.
The voices are getting louder.
And the last guy is Baal.
Oh, the storm god.
Yeah, so, look, there's really no way to put this. This is Baal's bizarre adventure, man. Something straight out of anime. The dude cloned himself a whole bunch of times, went on hijinks across the galaxy. He had, like, 10 different plots to destroy the universe or some shit. He, like, adventured to alternate realities and different timelines and shit. Like, this is straight up just JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but in Stargate. It's Baal's Bizarre Adventure. He's probably the best villain, just because he's fucking everywhere. You can't get rid of him. He's like, he is a parasite. He is the parasite. He's a parasite on the setting. He's parasitizing everything. You can't get rid of the fucker. He was also the only Goa'uld that survived past the fall of the System Lords. All the other System Lords were brought down, the Goa'uld Empire was destroyed, and he's still around with his hijinks and his bullshit, just doing his thing. There's so many of you, kill him and he just keeps coming back. It's like that fucking Barney meme from The Simpsons. You grab Barney, throw him out of Moe's bar, and then he just appears behind you. Balls back, everybody. We killed him again, and he's just back.
Yo, who did we just throw out, guys?
Eventually, finally, after giving literally everybody in the setting, from the Jaffa to the Tok'ra to the humans to the main characters to like the Asgard, just everybody, he gave everybody the runaround of a lifetime, chasing him everywhere. And I don't remember if it killed the host. I think it might have. Basically, what they did was they extracted the symbiote. They pulled it out of him. The symbiote was there, and then they threw it on the ground and killed it. Anyways, before I actually just end off the video, if you've made it this far, you're obviously a fan. You're obviously the target audience of this kind of content, so why not leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, all of that kind of stuff, because it tells YouTube that you enjoyed it, and it'll notify you of future releases so you can continue to enjoy the content. Or, if you're feeling particularly generous, we have a Patreon where you could throw a few bucks our way if you want to buy me a coffee or feed my co-host Steve to keep him from starving to death. It would be greatly appreciated. If not, and you just want to hang out, we've got a Discord, and I stream on Saturdays, so if you want to hang out live with me playing video games or join a reasonably sized community of fellow turbo nerds, go check that stuff out. Everything linked in the description below. And to the Patreons, the incredibly generous people who are already supporting the channel, a huge thanks to the arms dealers, making sure that we have all the tools and toys seen in the videos to get hands-on experience. I wish I didn't have hands-on experience with the Gould symbiotes, but thank you. It was awful. To all the food merchants, making sure that my co-host is ever fed and far from starvation. And a huge thanks and to the coffee vendors. Thank you very much for fueling my war on sleep. One day, with enough coffees, I shall never sleep again. And to the new guys, Felix, Jade, Charlie Morgan, and Deadman1526, thank you very much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. And with that, the video's pretty much over. Outros are difficult. Goodbye! See ya when I see ya.